Welcome to Dark Crossroads Podcast, hosted by Roxanne Fletcher. This is your stop for all things true crime and paranormal. From the infamous story of the New Bedford Highway Killer to the chilling tale of the Black-Eyed Children, Dark Crossroads Podcast is a truly deep dive into the stories that frighten and fascinate you. All links to the show will be provided in this episode's description. And don't forget to let us know what you think of today's episode. Adding to our previous exploration of the Salem witch trials, we will be taking a more personal glimpse by delving deeper into the stories of the victims themselves. Rather than focusing solely on the events and the accusations, we want to aim to pay tribute to these people as real individuals, with lives, families, and experiences beyond the tragic circumstances that befell them. By exploring their personal histories, relationships, and roles within their communities, we hope to humanize these often overlooked figures and gain more of an understanding of the impact the trials had on real lives. This perspective will not only honor the memory of those who suffered, but also provide valuable insight into the social dynamics and the human cost of this dark chapter in colonial American history. Tonight we will be embarking on the second part of our chilling journey into the heart of colonial Massachusetts. The year is still 1692, and a dark tide of hysteria is about to sweep through the town of Salem, leaving complete devastation in its wake. We are going to be focusing on uncovering the haunting stories of those caught in the web of the Salem witch trials, walking in the footsteps of the accused, feeling the weight of their chains, and hearing their final, desperate pleas of innocence. But before we delve into the individual stories, let's recap on our last episode. A small, isolated community surrounded by dark forests said to be the devil's domain. Religious fervor is at its peak, and suspicion lurks around every corner. It's this setting that whispered accusations will soon turn neighbors against neighbors, friends against friends, and even children against their parents. Let us begin the journey with the tale of Rebecca Nurse, a woman whose life of religion and devotion could not save her from the hangman's noose. Rebecca Nurse was 71 years old when the witch hunt fever gripped Salem. Born in Great Yarmouth, England in 1621, she had lived a life marked by hard work and devotion. Rebecca and her husband Francis had raised their 8 children in their farmhouse, which still stands to this day, being a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. Known for her devotion and her kindness, Rebecca was a pillar of the community. She regularly attended church, often leading prayers and offering comfort to those in need. Her farm was prosperous, a testament to the Nurse family's diligence and her skills. But even a lifetime of good deeds could not protect Rebecca from the poisonous whispers that had begun to circulate. It was March of 1692 when the first accusation came, hurled by a group of young children, including Abigail Williams and Ann Putnam Jr. These girls, who would become known as the Afflicted, claimed that Rebecca's spectral shape tormented them. Can you imagine the shock Rebecca must have felt? A grandmother, a pillar of the church, suddenly being branded as a servant of Satan. The accusation had also come from the most unexpected source, her own neighbors, the Putnam family, with whom she had a long-standing land dispute. Thomas Putnam and his wife Anne were influential members of the Salem village. They had lost several children in infancy, a tragedy they now attributed to Rebecca's alleged witchcraft. Their daughter, Ann Putnam Jr., became one of Rebecca's most vehement accusers. As Rebecca stood before the court, her composure never wavered. She declared,
"I am innocent as a child unborn, but surely what sin hath God found out in me unrepented of, that he shall lay such an affliction on me in my old age?"
Her family rallied around her. 40 of her neighbors signed a petition attesting to her good character. Initially, this support seemed to sway the jury, and Rebecca was found not guilty. But the court's decision was met with such an outcry that the verdict was overturned. On July 19th of 1692, Rebecca Nurse was led to Gallows Hill. Even as the noose was placed around her neck, she maintained her innocence, and her final words were not recorded, but those who witnessed her execution spoke of her dignity and her unwavering faith. Rebecca Rebecca Nurse's execution had sent shockwaves through the community. If she could be accused and convicted, then they thought no one was safe. Her death marked a turning point in the trials, causing some to begin questioning the validity of the accusations. Now let's pivot our attention to a figure whose story is often overshadowed, that of John Proctor. John Proctor was a successful farmer and tavern owner in Salem Village. Born in England in 1632, he had immigrated to Massachusetts with his parents as a young child, and by 1692, at the age of 60, he was known for his no-nonsense attitude and skepticism towards the witch hunt hysteria. John lived with his third wife, Elizabeth, and their children on a prosperous farm. He also owned a tavern, which made him privy to the town's gossip and had given him a unique perspective on the unfolding events. But John's outspoken nature would soon be his downfall. When his servant Mary Warren became involved with the afflicted girls, John's strict discipline of her drew unwanted attention. He publicly denounced the girls as frauds, a dangerous stance in a community gripped by fear. John's skepticism made him a target, and it wasn't long before the accusations turned towards him and Elizabeth. Imagine the terror of watching your entire world crumble, your entire reputation being destroyed, your life hanging in the balance, all because you dared to speak out against madness. John's former servant, Mary Warren, turned against him, claiming that he had beaten her for writing in his house and forced her to touch the devil's book. The testimony of a servant against a master was unusual at this time, highlighting the social upheaval caused by the trials. Despite torture and immense pressure, John Proctor refused to confess to witchcraft or to implicate others. In a heart-wrenching twist, his wife, Elizabeth, who was pregnant at the time, was also accused, but her execution was stayed due to her condition being that she was pregnant. On August 19th of 1692, John Proctor was led to Gallows Hill. His final words before his execution were a prayer for strength and for forgiveness, but not for himself, for his accusers and the judges. He died with dignity, his refusal to falsely confess serving as a testament to his own integrity. The next story is that of Tituba, a woman whose tale is shrouded in mystery and whose words ignited the flames of hysteria. Tituba was an enslaved woman in the household of Reverend Samuel Parris. Her origins are debated. Some say she was Native American, and others claim that she was from Barbados. What is known of her is that she was at the center of the initial accusations that sparked the witch trials. In the winter of 1692, when young Betty Parris and Abigail Williams began experiencing strange fits, suspicion quickly fell on Tituba. She was known for telling the girls stories of voodoo and magic from her homeland, harmless tales that took on a sinister cast in the eyes of the Puritans. Under intense interrogation and likely torture, Tituba confessed to witchcraft, but her confession was unlike any other. She spun a tale of black dogs, red cats, yellow birds, and a tall man from Boston who bid her to serve him. Her vivid testimony seemed to confirm the townspeople's worst fears about a vast conspiracy of witches. Tituba's words opened the floodgates, and soon accusations were flying thick and fast, engulfing the community in paranoia. But while her confession damned others, it ultimately spared her life. She was imprisoned but was never tried or executed. What became of Tituba after the trials remains a mystery to this day. Some accounts suggest that she was sold to pay for her prison fees, disappearing into the shadows of history. Her fate, like so much of her life, remains an enigma. Now I wanted to shed some light on a lesser-known victim of the trials, Bridget Bishop. Bridget Bishop was the first person executed during the Salem witch trials. Born around 1632, she was in her early 60s at the time of the accusations. Bridget had been married 3 times and was known for her outspoken nature and unconventional behavior. She owned a tavern, a fact that raised eyebrows in Puritan society. She was fond of wearing a black cap and a red shawl, which some viewed as flamboyant and inappropriate. Accusations against Bridget began began years before the trials. In 1680, she was accused of witchcraft but was cleared. When the hysteria of 1692 began, old suspicions resurfaced, and she was accused of bewitching 5 young women, including Ann Putnam Jr. and Mercy Lewis. In court, the afflicted girls claimed that Bridget's specter would pinch, choke, and bite them. One man even claimed she had visited him in the night and sat on his chest, causing him to be unable to move or speak. Bridget vehemently denied all charges, stating,
"I am no witch, I am innocent, and I know nothing of this."
Despite her protests, Bridget Bishop was found guilty. On June 10th of 1692, she became the first victim hung on Gallows Hill. Her execution opened the floodgates, and a summer of terror followed. The final story we're going to be covering is that of Giles Corey, whose defiance in the face of torture has become legendary. Giles Corey was an 81-year-old farmer and full member of the church when he was accused of witchcraft. Born in England, he had lived in Salem for decades and had a reputation as a quarrelsome but hardworking man. The accusation against Giles came after he spoke out against the trials, defending his wife Martha, who had also been accused. This act of loyalty would cost him dearly. When brought to trial, Giles made an unprecedented move. He refused to enter a plea. Under English law, a person who refused to plead could not be tried. However, the court had a brutal method to force a plea. This method was called pressing. This is a chilling scene that we want you to picture. Giles Corey, an elderly man, being stripped naked and laid in a pit, a heavy board being placed on his chest, and then stones were piled on top of him, one by one. The court demanded he enter a plea, but he remained silent. For 2 days, Giles endured this torture. When asked to plead, his only words were, "More weight." On September 19th of 1692, Giles Corey died under the stones, his defiance unbroken. Giles Corey's refusal to plead meant that he was never convicted, and thus his property and all of his belongings could not be seized. He died knowing that his children would inherit his estate. As we reflect on these lives, Rebecca, John, Tituba, Bridget, and Giles, we're reminded of the human cost of the Salem witch trials. 20 people were executed, and many more were imprisoned, and countless lives were forever changed. These stories represent just a fraction of the lives that were touched by this hysteria. There were many others: Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, who was one of the first to be accused; George Burroughs, a former minister of Salem Village, who was accused and was executed. There was also Dorcas Good, Sarah's 4-year-old daughter, who had become the youngest accused witch in Salem. The echoes of Salem continue to resonate to this day, a chilling reminder of what can happen when fear overwhelms reason, when accusations replace evidence, and when a community turns against its own. As we close the journey into the shadows of Salem, I leave you with one question. In times of crisis, will we ever learn from the past, or are we doomed to replay its darkest chapters? The witch hunts of Salem lasted just over a year, but their impact has endured for centuries. They serve as a stark warning against the dangers of mass hysteria, the importance of due process, and the need for compassion and critical thinking in the face of fear. May we never forget the voices silenced on Gallows Hill, and may their stories serve as a beacon of caution in troubled times. Alrighty, so it's that time, guys, to say goodbye. But before I do so, I just want to send a thank you to all of my listeners for your continued love and support, and for sending in cases that you want covered and stories that you want read on the podcast. We truly accept all stories, including scary, paranormal, and funny. Any cases you want covered or stories that you want read on the podcast, just please send them in to darkcrossroadspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for hanging out again today, and if you want any more information about the podcast or cases and stories that we cover, then head on over to the website at www.darkcrossroadspodcast.com. There you can find all of the information about the podcast, a link link to our merch, and also our blog covering all of the cases that we cover. You can also find us on all social media platforms. Don't forget to like, share, rate, review, subscribe wherever you're listening to us. You can subscribe to the podcast for bonus information. There is a link in all episodes in the notes that will send you to our subscription page, and with that you will get bonus content, discount on future merch, and a lot of extra goodies. Every single dollar that comes through donations or through our subscription goes straight into the podcast, helping fund research, and it really helps us out and keeps this podcast going. And with all of this said, please don't forget to be weird, stay different, and don't trust anyone. The Curiosity Box delivers the cerebral fascination of Vsauce right to your door through engaging science toys, surprising puzzles, and books that expand our understanding of the universe. The creators worked together to create, design, and handpick each illuminating item in the Curiosity Box, including constructive kits, brain games, and imaginative custom t-shirts. Every quarterly delivery will turn your home into a laboratory of wonder. If you have always been curious about the world around you, then subscribe to the Curiosity Box and have access to the most popular science education network on YouTube, as it energizes a community of Earth's most inquisitive minds with videos spanning science, math, and the human experience. And now all of that passion is in a box pulled off the screen and put in your hands. You can also receive monthly courses spanning popular academic disciplines to inspire and nurture the next generation of curious thinkers, innovators, and inventors. They are delivering a deeper learning experience through AR, VR, and video lessons on the MEL app. Join the curious community on their journey to explore the world, celebrate the amazing, and support brains for the future of our pale blue dot and beyond.